Hello,
Hello, Nivedita. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm also doing good.
Okay.
So, what's the time there, Nivedita? At your place?
1:30. 1:30.
1:30. So this is the lunch time, right?
Yeah.
So had your lunch
Plate is beside me.
later. So what you're planning to have?
Uh, Paneer, Matar
Something
paneer
fast?
and
Okay, okay. Matar paneer
Matar
always.
paneer.
Wow,
No, I cooked it
delicious.
yesterday only. So
Ah.
I'm having the same thing today.
Okay, okay, okay. So Indian food is easily available there?
It is available, but costly.
Oh, costly. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So do you cook or you bring from outside?
No, I cook.
Ah, that's good then. Then the cooking is cheaper.
Yeah, cooking is cheaper.
Okay, okay, okay. That's wonderful, right? So the person must be a very good cook.
Yeah.
So how is the weather there now this time?
Currently now it is 11.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. But
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you, it's
From
more,
past
right?
yeah. From
Because you
past
pick
4 days, it is 10 and 11.
Mhm.
So it
Okay,
is bit sunny.
sunny day. Okay, sunny.
Hmm.
But the sun. I like that sunny day there. Means that's UK, right?
Yeah.
So it will not. It will be good, right? Good for the body. The sun baths there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you, how many people are sharing? Four, five, or
Yeah.
two?
4, 4.
Four. Okay. 3 BHK, one
2
two
BHK.
BHK, 2 BHK. Okay, okay. Then it's good, right? So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it will be divided. So kitchen,
Yeah.
how you cook together? The
No,
menu
no,
will be
separate,
decided
separate.
together. Separate.
No,
Okay,
no.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So you cook individually to means for
For
yourself only.
me, yeah, yeah.
That's good, right? And otherwise that will be a problem. Today who will wash the utensils? Tomorrow who will wash?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Jogina, good morning.
Hello, Tanuj. Good morning. How are you?
Good, how are you? I
How
think
are
the
you,
other guys are still looking for the link.
Okay, okay. Tanuj, your throat is okay?
Yeah, I got cold. I'm just recovering from cold.
You know, do you watch sometime Bollywood movies? Bollywood,
Mm-hmm.
your your voice is looking. I mean, seems like a Bollywood kind of Don kind of character this time. Because your voice is getting heavy, right? Due to
Yeah,
something.
I know. Did you guys give the link for in the chat or
Huh?
not yet?
What you said, Tanuj?
They're looking for the link in the chat, in the WhatsApp chat.
Okay. Actually, the mail will be broadcasted to everybody. Actually,
For some reason, it is not going to Soumya. Could you please check with anyone, or you want us to check with someone?
yeah. Uh, Fasiha Bano, she will share actually the link.
Okay, we'll text her in the chat.
Yes, yes. She has link. Tanuj, you're from Andhra?
Yeah.
Okay. So how long you have how many years from how many years you have not visited your place?
6 years. My parents came a couple of times, so
Okay.
6 years I was here.
Okay.
Good morning, Joginder. This is Kishore.
Kishore, how are you?
I'm doing good. Joginder. How are you?
I'm also doing good.
Okay.
Kishore Kumar, right?
Yeah.
Bollywood singer, great singer. So Soumya's will join. Kishore, any
Sorry?
message from Soumya? Soumya will join today.
Still, she is facing the issue with the link.
I have Zoom link. Shall I send her?
She
Yeah,
already
yes,
No,
please.
I think someone sent already.
yeah, Fasiya already shared. So so Black Friday is going on, right?
Yeah.
So lot of offers, right? Heavy discounts.
In, in 10 years back, it's very crazy like that. But nowadays, it's not that crazy because these offer will come at any time in the meantime also.
Mid also
Yeah.
they give the offer.
Yeah.
So Black Friday and other. So many things are there, and people celebrate the Halloween there also in USA, right? Halloween.
Halloween, yeah, Halloween. Yeah, that's the kids do that, right?
They like it, right?
Yeah. Costume parties.
Uh,
Hi, Jogender. This is Soumya.
Hi, Soumya, how are you?
Hello.
Hello, Soumya, how are you?
Hello.
Hello, Soumya, how are you?
I'm good.
Okay. So we are. Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Okay. So, so guys, let's start our today's topic. One moment. So it's a very morning time in you at your place, right? Soumya?
Yes, it's 6:40.
Okay. So okay. So our today's topic is EFS. I'm going to share the screen to all of you. Okay. So first I will discuss what is the concept of the EFS. Okay. Okay, before that, I would like to show you one more thing about the, then we'll start the EFS. The concept name is NAT Gateway, private NAT Gateway, okay? Private NAT Gateway. So guys, in our last session, we understood about the NAT Gateway, but that was the public NAT Gateway. So what we were doing by using the public NAT Gateway, we were providing the internet connection inside the private subnet, right? Inside the private subnet. So what was the scenario there in the public NAT gateway? Guys, my voice is echoing. Hello? Yeah, now it's okay. Because when I was speaking something, then I was able to listen my voice. Okay. Okay. So what was the previous concept that we have discussed? The concept was like that way. So in short, we were creating the public subnet and private subnet. Right. In the public subnet, we were creating the web server. In the private subnet, we were creating the DB server, database server. And we were connecting the internet gateway with the public subnet, IGW. So there was direct internet connection inside the public subnet. So whatever the servers we were creating inside the public subnet, they were able to get the internet access directly, right? But in the private subnet, there is no connectivity of the IGW because it is a database server, DB server. And we were not able to provide the internet connection to the DB server. But later we discussed about that. DB servers also required the internet connection, right? DB server will also require the internet connection because the DB server also required to update the latest patches. Patches like the antivirus updates. So for getting the updates of the antivirus application, they required to connect with the antivirus website, right? Without the internet access, the DB server will not be able to connect with the antivirus website. So for that purpose, we required the incoming internet connection, but outgoing incoming internet connection means the DB server should be able to access, but the other outside from the outside, the people must not be able to access the DB server. That was our situation, right? So what the NAT gateway was doing, so we were provisioning the NAT gateway for providing the internet access inside the private subnet. So we were attaching or creating the NAT gateway. We were creating the NAT gateway and we were attaching the NAT gateway inside the public subnet, right? So NAT gateway was having the public IP address, static public IP address, and the static public IP address we were calling as elastic IP. Elastic IP address, right? So through this, okay, through this common elastic IP address, whatever will be the number of servers, server number 1, DB server 1, DB server number 2, the common elastic IP address will be mapped over all the private IP addresses. Mapping, mapping. The name itself we are calling as NAT. So network address translation, right? So so it was NAT gateway was associated with the public subnet. So it was fetching the internet. NAT gateway was fetching the internet from the public subnet and distributing the internet connection to all the servers which were inside the private subnet. Okay, that was the concept of the NAT gateway. Now we understood this, right? But this NAT gateway we provisioned as a public NAT gateway. There is one more NAT gateway is available. One more NAT gateway option is available. That is the private NAT gateway. So what is the purpose of the private NAT gateway? That we'll try to understand. Okay, in the public NAT gateway, what was happening? In the public NAT gateway, the DB servers will be able to access the internet connection, right? DB servers will be able to access the internet connection. They will be able to connect with the antivirus websites, SQL Server website, whatever the DB server application is running in their computer, in this computer, they will be able to connect and timely update, will be able to update the patches, right? But as a security point of view, what the NAT gateway is providing, from the outside, nobody will be able to access this server. From the inside, this server will be able to connect with the website for updating the patches. But from the outside, nobody will be able to access these servers, right? So this security is provisioned by the NAT gateway. Okay. From the internet, nobody will be able to access whatever the servers we provisioned inside the private subnet. Okay. Now, what is private NAT gateway? That we'll try to understand. So let's say we have multiple VPCs. Let's say we have multiple VPCs. We have a VPC with the name VPC A, and we have a VPC with the name VPC B. VPC B. In the VPC A, let's say we have two subnets. One subnet is a public subnet. And second subnet, we have the private subnet. Okay, just a namesake, we given the name. It's just a label. Private subnet, public subnet, just a name we given, label. So in the public subnet, maybe we are keeping the web servers. In the private subnet, we are keeping the database servers, which we don't want to expose to the internet from the outside. We don't want to expose to any other network. So we have VPC B also. In the VPC B, let's say we have created only one subnet, and we given the name of the subnet as subnet C. And private subnet is there, public subnet is there. VPC A network range we have given 10.0.0.0/16. And VPC B network range we have given 20.0.0.0/16. Public subnet network range CIDR we have given 10.0.1.0/24. Private subnet CIDR range we have given 10.0.2.0/24, right? And subnet C network range we have given 20.0.1.0/24, right? So if we'll do the pairing in between both of the subnets, pairing, and that is the VPC pairing.
Again, the subnet C is the public subnet or private subnet?
I am assuming it's a public subnet, right?
Public.
The machine will be able to go to the internet also.
Okay.
So we have created one EC2 here inside the subnet C also, right? So here also one IGW we created, internet gateway we created, and we associated with the subnet C. And here also one IGW we created and we associated with the subnet public subnet, right? So after the pairing, what will happen? The VPC A, VPC B EC2 instances should be able to access, should be able to communicate with the VPC A instances. The communication will be happen proper from both of the side, bidirectional. Okay, this EC2 instance must be able to access the EC2 instances in the VPC A, and the VPC A EC2 instance must be able to access the subnet of the EC2 instances of the subnet C, right? This will happen because we will do the pairing. But this is my DB server. This is my DB server. I don't want, this is my DB server. I don't want from the other network, I don't from the other VPC or the other network, anybody should be able to access this DB server. I want to block. Nobody should be able to access my DB server, but this DB server must be able to access the EC2 instances of the other networks. What I will do, right? I will create a private NAT gateway. I will create a private NAT gateway. So what the private NAT gateway will do? Private NAT gateway will enable this facility for the private subnet DB servers, that these servers will be able to access any of the servers of the other VPC, but the other VPC will not be able to access that DB servers. So it's a security, right? It's a security. So this is the purpose of the private NAT gateway. Okay. How to do it? Let's see.
What is the difference between NAT gateway and private NAT gateway?
In the private NAT gateway, we are not using the elastic IP address. In the public NAT gateway, we are using the elastic or the public IP address. In the private NAT gateway, we are not using the public IP address or the static public IP address. Here we are just using the private IP address. Got it? And the private IP address will provision the access of the other networks from the DB servers, but the other network servers will not be able to access the DB servers. Netting is going on, right? Got
so if other subnet C is the web server, is trying to get the data from the database server, then what is the process?
They will not access. They will not access. Then we remove the NAT gateway. Then, if you want to allow, then remove the NAT gateway, right? Because we want to block. We want to make it confidential. That's why we are provisioning the NAT.
I mean, like we want to give some restrictions to some servers only, not only like we have a multiple VPs like A, B, C, D, like that. So from the database servers, we want to give like it is in VPC-A, for example, the database servers. We want to give to B, C, D only access, like to allow the in and out, like to flow. So for that purpose, how do we give that?
Let me complete. Okay, let me then see the scenario. What is the possibility there? Okay.
Okay.
But will be the possibility. Okay, so this is a private NAT gateway. As per this concept, we understood about that from the DB servers can access the other VPCs, instances, but the other VPCs instances will not be able to access the DB server, right? So let's go to the portal. So first of all, we are going to create two VPCs. So VPC we create inside the service called as VPC. Okay, so click over your VPCs, create VPC, and we are giving the name of the VPC as VPC. Enter the CIDR value of the VPC. Scroll down, create VPC. So VPC has been created, right? So within this VPC, we are going to create the subnet. So if I click over your VPC, you can see VPC A has been created. So like this way, create the another VPC also, create VPC. And
Yeah, create another VPC in different region, please.
Don't worry, we can create it. There's no problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to create inside the.
You did on Virginia, right? Can you go on Mumbai then?
Or Oregon, I'm selecting actually, Oregon.
Yeah, and both are US regions. So can you
It
go on
doesn't
the
matter, region is different actually.
Mhm.
Okay, so here I'm giving the name here VPC B, right? VPC B. So here I'm giving the network range as 20.0.0.0/16 and click over create VPC. So VPC has been created successfully, right? So I am going to create the subnet here, create subnet. So I am clicking over VPC B because I want to create inside the VPC B the new subnets. So here I want to give here the, as per my diagram, I'm giving the subnet name as subnets C. Availability zone, I can choose A. And here 20.0.1.0/24. Create subnet. So subnet C has been created successfully. I can create the route internet gateway now. So create internet gateway, which will direct the traffic from the subnet towards the internet, right? So internet gateway, I'm giving here IGW, IGWP I'm giving here. Create internet gateway. Internet gateway has been created, now attached to a VPC. Select VPC B, attach internet gateway. So internet gateway has been created and attached to the VPC. Now we have to edit the route table. So click over the route table. So route table, if you see here, okay, VPC we have created route table. Let's see, VPCB route table is available here, right? VPCB is written here. So I am giving here the name here, VPCB RT. Okay, VPCB RT. Now create route. Route table is already there, right? So now I will give here I will do the subnet association, edit subnet association. Subnet C is only the subnet I have created. So I will associate the subnet C with this route table. Click over save association. Now go to the routes, edit routes, and I want to direct the traffic towards the internet from this subnet. So internet should be accessible. So I will give the destination as internet, but through whom? Through the internet gateway. So select IGWB, save changes. Done, all done. Now we have to create the instances that we can create it later. So now I'm switching again inside the North Virginia. So I will refresh it here. Okay, no issue. So click over the internet gateways. So I will create an internet gateway here, create internet gateway. So the name I'm giving here IGWA. Scroll down, create internet gateway. So internet gateway has been created. Now we have to attach with the VPC. If you will not attach to a VPC, then your VPC will not get the internet access. So attachment is very, very important. So select the VPC-A. One more very, very important thing, one internet gateway can be only associated with the one VPC. One internet gateway, we cannot associate more than the one VPC. If we have associated the internet gateway A, IGWA with the VPC-A, then we cannot attach the IGWA at the same time with the another VPC. For that purpose, we have to create the another route, another internet gateway for the new VPC. Now click over route tables. So as we have created VPC, so when we will create a new VPC, a route table entry will get automatically created. So that's why you can see here a new route table entry is available here. VPC A is available. So I can change the name here. I'm giving here a name, private RT. So private IP, intentionally I'm giving the name because I will use this route table for the private subnet. So I'm going to create the another route table, create route table. And this route table name I am giving here, public RT. And I am attaching this one with the VPC A. Scroll down, click over create route table. So this route table also has been created successfully. So this public RT I will associate with the public subnet, and the private RT I will associate with the private subnet only. So what I will do, I will select this one, subnet association, edit subnet association. Okay, so here it is not showing me the private subnet. Let me check private subnet we have created or not. We have not created any subnet, right? So click over create subnet. So select the VPC in which you want to create the private subnet and the public subnet. So click over VPC A. And here we are giving the name as public subnet. Public subnet, right?
So in VPC B, we are creating only one subnet, right? Which is a
Correct.
public subnet or private subnet?
Public subnet, because the IGW is connected there.
Yeah,
Wherever the subnet is there, IGW is connected, that will be always public subnet. So here we are giving here the name, range here 10.0.1.0/24. Another subnet, which I am designating as a private subnet, availability zone 10.0.2.0/24. Create subnet. So private subnet also done, public subnet also done. So both the subnets got created successfully. So now if you click over the subnet, along with the other subnet, both of the subnets are available. Now we have to create internet gateway. So internet gateway is already done. We have to edit the route table. So public RT, private RT. So select the private IP RT in which we will associate just the private subnet. Subnet association, edit subnet association. So here we are going to add only the private subnet. Save association. Now public RT. Select subnet association, edit subnet association, then public subnet we are associating. Save association. So in the public subnet, public RT, we have to define the destination as internet. The traffic should be moved towards direct towards the internet. So destination is internet, through whom? Through the IGW, to the internet gateway. Select this IGWA, save changes. Done. But the IGW we are not attaching inside we are not associating inside the route table, private route table, right? Because in the private route table we have associated the private subnet. Okay, now let's start creating the instances. So instance we have to create inside the another service called as EC2 service. So right click over the AWS. I will open the another console inside the another tab. So EC2, go to the EC2. So running instances are 0. Click over the instances running, right? Launch instances. So we can select the image. So I'm selecting the image here, Amazon Linux to AMI, right? Yes. So T2 micro free tier eligible. Next, I want to create one server inside the public subnet. So I will select here VPC-A public subnet. So this I will designate as a web server. So I will tag the name of this server as a Linux web server. Linux web server. Next, and here I'm going to create a new security group. The security group name I'm giving here VPC. Okay, VPC-A SG. So I will copy and paste the same here. So I will all ICMP4, all IC, then I will select here HTTP also, SSH, all ICMP. Okay, maybe in future I will use the RDP also. So I will select the RDP also. So custom anywhere my. What is the difference? So guys, what is the difference in between all of them? When I will use custom, when I will use anywhere, when I will use my IP? Anybody can tell me? Guys?
Yeah, custom will be give the some particular IPs only you can able to access. Anywhere means you can give any IP to access.
Okay, my IP?
My IP means particularly you have some specific IP you created it. That IP only you can able to access.
My IP means this computer. See, my IP. Automatically it got my IP, my machine IP. Right? Anywhere means anywhere. From any computer, from any IP address we can. Custom means if I want to specify a special network range, specific network range, from that only specific network range, the EC2 must be accessible. So for this time, I am selecting anywhere. Anywhere. So review and launch. Oh, what happened? Okay, RDP. Review and launch. So I will create a new key pair. I'm giving here VPC-A key pair. VPC-A key pair. VPC-A key pair, right? VPC-A key pair. Download key pair. Downloaded. Now, once the download is complete, we go launch instances. View instances. So Linux web server is in the process of creation. Now, in the meanwhile, I can create the DB server also, database server. So that I'm going to create inside the private subnet. Launch instances, select the Amazon image. Select the T2 micro, next. So I want to create one DB server only. So I will select one, VPC-A. Now a private subnet got selected, and I don't want to assign the public IP address, so let it be disabled. Auto assign public IP address. Click over next. Next, tag the name here as a DB server. Next, here this time I'll use the existing security group. VPC-A SG is already there. Once I will choose this one, whatever the protocols we added, it will automatically implemented on it will get automatically implemented on this EC2 instance. Review and launch. Launch. Existing key pair I will select, launch instances. View instances.
Joginder, one quick question.
Yes.
When you creating the gateway, like SGRT, so route table. When for private IP, for the DB server, you giving the same route table, but inside the route table we give the access, right? HTTP and anywhere. Does it work?
HTTP anywhere.
Yeah.
For the route table.
Yeah, in the DB server, when you creating the instance,
Is there anything is there with the anywhere is written there?
No. Can you customize that DB server?
You want me VPC route table or you want the EC2?
No, DB server. When we're creating a DB instance, EC2 instance.
Okay.
So this is the private. We select the private IP, and the gateway, the one SG secure gateway, right? On that we give the, the one existing gateway we selected. The existing gateway already connected with. Already we gave the access for SSH and HTTP and RDP. All these
security group, not the gateway.
Yeah.
Security.
Sorry, security.
That is the firewall.
Yeah, we already gave all the access. We use the same security group on this DB server. Then what is the point?
Same security, the same security group on the DB server, right? So the point is that it will allow, if the traffic is coming, if the request is coming from the outside, it will check whether the protocol is allowed or not. After the protocol, when the protocol will be allowed, right? It will check which IP address. For which IP address, that is the second level of security.
Okay, yeah, I got it now. Yeah, because basically the internet, we are cut down the internet about the DB server.
Yes.
So the internet, you can give any rules and regulation on the security group, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
Yeah, I got it.
So DB server, Linux server, in the meantime, we will switch inside the another region, which is the Oregon was there, right? Okay, EC2. Okay. We use the Oregon or something else. Let's check it. Otherwise,
no, Oregon.
It was Oregon. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Your VPC is okay. Oregon. So I will open another tab in which we will select the EC2 instances running. Launch instances. Select the image of the instance. T2 micro, click over next. Want to create the one server, so select the VPC B, and I'm selecting here subnet C and auto assign public IP address, enable it. Next, tag this server. So name, I am just randomly, I am giving the name server VPC. Next, and here you will not find the security group that we had created in the another region, because the security group also is also region based. Okay, so whatever the security group we will create inside the one region, in the second region the same security group will not be available. So in the another region we have to create the another one security group. So we are creating a new one and giving here VPC DSG. And again, I need to add some protocols, all SCMPv4 and HTTP, RDP, select anywhere, review and launch, create a new key pair. So I'm giving here VPC B key, download key pair. Okay, view launch instances, view instances. So server VPC B is in the process of creation. Here, let's see. So we can see both of the server are ready. DB server is ready. Linux web server is also ready to use. So now Now let's try to take access for the Linux web server. So for that purpose, go to the instance ID. I will go copy the public IP address and go to CMD. So my key pair is located inside the downloads folder. So I have to switch inside the download folders, which will provide me the key pair access. CD downloads var star.pem. So this command will display the list of only the PM file. So down, what was the name? VPC A key pair. Okay. So SSH EC2 -user @ paste this public IP address -i VPC A key pair.pem. So I will get connected. Is asking yes. Got connected. It is showing Amazon Linux to AMI. So sudo su, right? So sudo su. So successfully I got connected, but I cannot get connected directly with the DB server because the DB server doesn't have the public IP address, right? Okay. So here, let's go to the DB server. Select this DB server and we can verify from here. There's no public IP address. There is only private IP address, but I want to take the access. Okay. I want to take the access. Okay. I will take the access later, but till that time, let me check what is the situation of the EC2 instance, which is on the other region. So it is also created. So I can take the access of this one also. So go to the public IP address of this one, copy it and go to CMD. So CD downloads again, because the key pair file is in the download folder, we have to switch inside the download folder. SSH EC2 -user @ paste the public IP address -i, okay, VPC B key pair. So this is the key pair file which we have associated with this server. Yes, we got connected, and you can see the IP address is here. Directly you can see the IP address 20.0.1.173, right? So this is the IP address of here, and that is the IP address here 10.10.0.1.68. So we can use both of the in the same screen. Okay. So if you want to communicate, okay, let me check what is the private IP address of the DB server. 10.0.2.105. I'll copy this one. Let's try to communicate from this machine. So this is also in the VPC A, and I'm going to create, I'm going to ping with the DB server that is also inside the VPC A. So it should be ping. Right, we are getting the ping reply. Ping reply is perfect. So DB server is also, DB server I am pinging from the web server. So web server and the DB server both are inside the same VPC. So that's why they are giving the ping communication with each other. So I will break the ping communication. But if I will try to ping with the other server, that is the server which is inside the VPC B, it will not ping. It will not allow me to ping, right? So I will copy this one and I will try to ping from this server 10.0.1.68. So ping, paste this one. So ping is not successful due to the reason because 20.0.1.173 is in the VPC B and the 10.0. It is in the VPC A. So we required the VPC pairing, right? We required the VPC pairing. So let's first configure the VPC pairing. Okay. So for the VPC pairing, cross-region pairing we have to do, okay? We have to go inside the VPC. So this is my North Virginia VPC region. I have to go inside the, pairing option will be there. pairing connection option will be there. So create pairing connection, click over there. Then here, I am giving the name of the pairing as A to B. So what is the source? I am selecting as VPC A is the source. What is the destination? Destination is in the another region. So I will select another region. So what is the another region? So another region is the Oregon. So US West Oregon. What is the VPC ID of the Oregon region? So VPC ID I don't have. So I will get the VPC ID from the Oregon region. I have to switch there. This is the VPC ID. So I can click over here. I can copy this VPC ID from here. I will go there and I will simply paste it here. So I pasted the destination VPC ID here, which is the Oregon. Click over create pairing connection. So connection request has been sent already to the Oregon region. So from the Oregon region, if you click over the pairing connection, it is showing pending acceptance. So it will show pending acceptance until we will go inside the Oregon region and we will accept it. So click over the VPC in the Oregon region and go to the pairing connection. You can see here we got the request. So I am giving here the name B-A, reverse, vice versa. And so go to the action, accept request, accept. Done, it's provisioning. So we can refresh it, it will show active. Let's go to the VPC here inside the North Virginia. Refresh it. Here is also showing active. So guys, we have to do the pairing at the one side. Automatically at the destination side, it will be automatically configured. Now, just creating the pairing connection is not enough, right? We have to define this this pairing connection entry in the route table. Okay. So what we are going to do, we have to go inside the route table, go to the route tables. Okay. And here I will select the public RT. I'm selecting the public RT. I will not select the private IP. I will show you what will happen with the private IP later. Private RT later. I will show you what we will do with the private RT. So public RT I will select, and here I will select the routes, edit routes, add route. So I want to create a bridge in between the VPC A and the VPC B. So I need to define the destination here. This is 10 network. So I have to define here 20.0.0/16. So through what? Through the pairing connection. So pairing connection we need to select, because the pairing connection will provide the connectivity from the VPC A to VPC B. So save changes. Done from this side. So we have to do the same thing at the Oregon side also. So go to the Oregon VPC and here go to the pairing connection, go to the route table. So route table is this one, VPC B RT. So select the routes, edit the routes, and from here we will select 10.0.0/16. And here we will select pairing connection B2A. So select this one, save changes. Now let's verify whether we'll get the ping communication perfectly. So we are getting the ping reply from the 20 to 10 network and the 10 network to 20, right? So let's break this one. Yes. So what is an IP address? 10.0.1.10.0.168. So let's try from this to there. Ping 10.0.1.68. Ping is working. Perfect. So from both of the sides, the ping is working fine. Now, if I want to ping okay. Now, if I want to ping the DB server, right? DB server from the 20 network, will it ping? No, it will not ping. Let's test it also. let's go to the EC2, and this is the private IP address, right? And go there and type ping and paste the private IP address. It's not pinging. It's not pinging. So let's do one thing. Okay. So our intention is that from this network, we should not be able to access the DB server, but from the DB server, we should be able to access the 20 network. Okay. So for that purpose, we have to use the NAT gateway, but private NAT gateway this time. So I'm going to the VPC. Okay. VPC A. Here you will find an option NAT gateway. NAT gateways. Okay, NAT gateways option. So create NAT gateway. So here the name of the NAT gateway I'm giving here, my private NAT gateway, my private NAT gateway. So subnet I am selecting. Subnet always should be that subnet in which IGW has been connected, right? So I am selecting here public subnet, and here I will choose the connectivity as private, right? So I will click over create NAT gateway. So it's pending. So if you click over the NAT gateways, you can see here it got the private IP address. It didn't get the public IP address. So it got the private IP address from which subnet range? From the public subnet range 10.0.1.173. So let it be complete. Let's refresh it. Okay, we refreshed it. Okay, we refreshed it. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go inside the route tables. So inside the route table, I have a private ID. So go to the routes, edit routes, add routes, and here I'm selecting here. What is the network? 20.0.0.0 slash 16, right? But through whom? Through the NAT gateway, my private NAT gateway. So save changes. Okay, we saved the changes, right? Okay. Now let me try to ping from the DB server to that the server which is inside the VPC-B. So for that purpose, what I have to do, I have to take the remote access of the DB server inside my web server here. So how I can do, take the remote access? First of all, I required the key pair file that we already did in our last session for remote access. So let's go to the downloads folder and VPC A key pair, VPC B key pair, right? Because the destination computer computer is associated with this VPC B key pair. So I will right click over here, open with Notepad. This one, right? Okay. So I will copy everything. So I'm shifting this key there. Yeah. So now vi abc.pam. So I will paste this one, right? Then I will save. Done. If I will type ls, we can see here abc.pam is available. Now give the permission to access 700 abc.pam. Oh, okay. I have to create for the DB server what I did. So I have to remove this one actually. So I have to remove this one. Okay. So what is the key pair? VPC A key pair.pem, because the DB server is also associated with this key pair file only. So I'll right click over here, open with Notepad. Okay. So I'll copy this one and I will go to the instance. Okay. vi abc.pam. Done. Okay. Now I'll give the permission. Ch mode 700. Done. Permission is given. So now I will take the access, remote access of the DB server. So where is my DB server? This is my DB server. I will copy the private IP address of this DB server and I will go to my EC2. So I will type SSH EC2 -user @ and private IP address of the DB server -i. And what is the key pair? abc.pam. Just now we created. Yes. Perfect. You can see the IP address got it. 10.0.2.105. From here you can recognize in which virtual machine or the EC2 instance now you are inside. So now I'm inside the 10.0.2.105, right? And you can verify even the internet is not working. Ping www.google.com because we have not associated the internet gateway, right? Now let's try to ping the VPC B server. So let's try to ping. So copy the IP address of the VPC B server. Now ping, paste it. Perfect, we are getting the access. Perfect, we are getting the access.
You're pinging the public IP or private?
Private IP. 20 is the private IP.
Yeah.
Okay. Private IP address. But from the other side, let's try to ping 10.0.2.105, right? Okay. Here, this is my machine. So this is my VPC B machine because 20 is written here. So ping. Oh, sorry. I have to copy from there. This one. No access. Okay, guys. Hello.
Yes, Jagan.
So guys, now
Yes.
we are good. So now guys, we are taking a break. After the break, we will move next.
Okay. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
So let us start.
Okay.
Our new topic is EFS. So EFS stands for
There is
elastic.
one doubt.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Uh-huh.
So, as far as now we see, we have created only two VPCs. How about when we have three VPCs? The VPC pairing should be between all the three. Like
Correct.
now, when we have two, we will be doing one, right? One in one place will be accepting.
Correct. We have to create the two pairing connection. One is A to B, second one is the A to C.
What
Okay.
about B then?
Which one is A to B? A to
Huh,
B,
if we have
A to B already done, right? So pairing we have to configure, we have to enable at the one side. Then automatically it is bidirectional. So from the B to A, it will be automatically enabled, right? From the A to B, B to A, it will be automatically done. Then third, if the third VPC we will create, then we have to create A to C. Then C to A will get automatically created. Okay.
For a private gateway also will be created like that, or one private gateway is enough for connecting all other VPCs.
One private gateway, one private NAT gateway, in which you, if you have selected, if you have created for the VPC A, it will work for the VPC A only.
Okay,
Right?
for each VPC we need to connect. Then each private gateway we need to create, right? Then
DB server.
For example, we have three VPCs A, B, C. A is in Mumbai and B is in Virginia and C is in Ohio. Okay, we gave A to B access peering connection.
Correct.
And B to C also peering connection. Does
Correct.
it work A to C also?
Right. It will work for the, you have to add one more entry in the same table, right? We added the 20 entry, then we have to enter the 30 entry also if it is a
30. Okay. And then I create the one database server in A VPC, and I gave the gateway and private gateway connection and everything to B and C, right? So in the private gateway connections, I need to add the route on the route table. I need to add B and C also.
Correct. One more entry you will add it.
One more entries. Okay.
That's it.
So wherever the private network is there, we need to give the gateway from there to other servers.
Yes.
Okay.
So Nivedita, clear? Hello?
Yeah. Yes.
So next is EFS. EFS stands for Elastic File System. Elastic File System. So guys, first of all, I will explain you the concept on the paintbrush, right? After that, I will show you some slides. Then in third, I will show you the lab demonstration. First, I will explain the concept on the paintbrush. Second, I will show you the slide. Third, I will give you the lab demonstration of the same. Okay. What elastic file system is, let's try to understand. We have suppose we have a physical data center. We have physical data center in the physical on-prem environment. Okay, so in the physical data centers, we create a SAN storage. We create a SAN storage, and the SAN storage will contain the couple of disks, collection of the multiple disks. And SAN storage will get connected with the multiple servers. We can connect the 2 servers, we can connect the 3 servers, we can connect the 5 servers, we can connect the 10 servers also. As much as you want, you can connect the multiple servers with the central SAN storage. So this SAN storage is connected with the server number 1. This server, I am assuming this is the server. This is a file server, what we can say that this is a server, iSCSI initiator. Have you heard about the initiator and the target, guys? iSCSI initiator, iSCSI target.
No.
Okay. So initiator is the server which is getting connected with the central storage. This is the initiator server. Initiator, right? So this is the first server and this is the second server. Okay. So this server also got connected with the central storage. This is a SAN storage area network. Storage area network, right? So this SAN storage in the physical environment will have the one card called as HBA card. HBA stands for host bus adapter card. HBA card, it looks like a same like a NIC card, but it is not an NIC card. The main purpose, the only purpose of the HBA card is to connect the SAN storage with the servers. Okay. So I will show you the picture of the HBA card in the Google image. It looks like this. So this is the HBA card. HBA card, right? It's an HBA card. So this SAN storage got connected with the server 1 and the server number 2. This is server number 1 and this is server number 2. Server number 2. So just think like that. In the SAN storage, we have created a folder, just like a folder. Suppose simply think like that, we have created a folder. Okay, and let's assume that in the server number 1, we have connected with the SAN storage. Server number 2, we have created with the SAN storage. And this SAN storage will have the shared IP address, right? IP address. So this IP address we are going to mount. This IP address we are going to mount here. This IP address belongs to the SAN storage. Let's say the IP address is here. Here 54.0.0.4. This is the SAN storage IP address. IP. Right. So this IP address we are going to mount here also, and we are going to mount here also, right? As we do in the, we create the map in network drive, right? In the Windows client computer. Like the same way, if we will map this shared SAN storage IP address here, and we will create a folder, we will create a directory here. Let's say directory name we have created here, test. And in this test directory, we mounted this IP address which belongs to the SAN storage, and we created one directory here also with the name test, and we mounted this SAN storage IP address inside here. So what will happen if some, okay, so what will happen due to this, whatever we will enter whatever we will save inside this test folder, it is not going to save here. It is not, it will be saved centrally here inside the SAN storage, because we created a mount test as a mount point, which is mounted along with the IP address of the central SAN storage. And whatever we will save through here inside this one, it is going to save here in the central location. Let's say inside the test folder, if I will create by using the touch command, if I will create with the help of the touch command, the file name is a.txt, b.txt, right? The same file, these files is going to save not on the local disk of the server number 1. These files are going to save inside the SAN storage, right? So hence, these files are going to save inside the central SAN storage. So if we will type the ls command here to list whatever the contents inside the test folder, this abc.txt file will be visible here also. Got my point, guys? Getting my point? What is the advantage here? The advantage is here, if this server is not saving the data is saving inside the SAN storage. If this server will get fail, then no problem, data will not lost, because the data actually is not here. The data is here. It is just a medium to store the data, right? So this server 1 and the server 2, right? This server 1 and the server 2 is just a medium to store the data inside the central storage. Okay. If this server number 1 will fail, no problem. The data will not lost, because the data actually is not here. Data is here. If this server will lost and this server is alive, no problem. The data will not lost. The data is actually here, right? So this is the physical environment. But what if this complete SAN storage will be failed due to some short circuit, due to some power failure, due to some anything will be happen? This complete rack will be failed. SAN storage rack will fail. What will happen in the physical environment? So in this case, in the physical environment, the IT department have to provision another one more SAN storage, replica storage, right? Another one more replica storage. What will happen with the replica? Whatever the data is storing here, it is going at the same time, it is going to be replicate here, just like a backup, right? If something wrong will be happen here, no problem, the data will be available here. We could recover the data from the another, which is the replica server, replica SAN storage. But this is a very, very expensive process. Very expensive process, and it required the highly skilled person to manage and to create and manage all these things. Highly qualified staff we required, right? And we have to continuously monitor these things. This was our critical responsibility to manage. It was creating the SAN server, connecting with the server, and creating the replica. It was not an easy challenge, was not an easy task, right? So it was the very, very hard work, right? So it was costing to the company a lot. So this was the physical environment. But in the cloud environment, there is a service called as EFS service, which is also providing the same kind of environment, but it is a AWS managed service. Why we are calling as AWS managed service? Because the management of the central EFS storage, just like a SAN storage, is totally managed by the AWS people.
Yoginder, is it something like a backup to the SAN storage?
Which one? This
Can
one?
we call this EFS as a backup storage?
EFS is not the backup storage. EFS is
Backup
actually
for
the SAN storage.
Soumya,
EFS is a SAN storage. Let me complete. EFS is a SAN storage, but in the cloud. So we don't require
Soumya,
this one.
it's a kind of a slash aura.
Hello.
Okay.
You are comparing in your environment, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's like a not to that particular. It's like a. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Think about that. If you will move the SAN storage in the cloud, then it is an EFS, right? If you'll move this SAN storage in the cloud, then it is an EFS. So in the physical environment, we people are managing everything from the beginning to the up to the high end level. We required the highly qualified team. We people were responsible. But in the AWS, the same SAN service we are recognizing with the name EFS. So EFS is the SAN service, but in SAN storage, kind of SAN storage service, but in the AWS cloud. It's a managed service, right? We have no need to worry about the replica. We have no need to worry about the backup. Everything will be taken and managed by the AWS team, right? Okay. Now let's come to the EFS. So in the EFS is also, this is the EFS storage. This is the EFS central storage. So this EFS central storage will get connected, will get connected with the multiple EC2 instances. So this is the EC2 instance 1, this is the EC2 instance 2, server 1, server 2. Right, server 1 and server 2. Right, so both will be the Linux server. This is a Linux server 1, this is a Linux server 2. Okay, so what are the protocols we need to enable, right? So in order to establish the communication from the EFS storage to the server number 1, server number 2, we have to enable a protocol in the security group that we are calling as NFS, right? That we are calling as NFS protocol, Network File System Protocol, right? Okay, so EFS, this EFS is a managed storage. Managed storage. Why it is a managed storage? Because maintenance of the EFS, right? Maintenance of the EFS will be completely managed by the EFS. Once we created the EFS, right? Once we created the EFS, everything, maintenance, whatever the disks are there, maybe many disks will be there. Disk number 1, disk number 2, disk number 3, disk number 4, disk number 5. There are the multiple disk collection of the multiple disks, but that is the backend scene. Backend scene, we are not responsible. We are responsible for just the creation of the EFS, but in the backend, how many disks they attached it, that will be taken care by the AWS team, right? If any one of the disk in the backend is failure, right, they are replacing the new disk, they will do it. We will not do anything in the backend. Okay. Another thing is that EFS storage is a EFS, we are calling as the name EFS, Elastic File System. Why we are calling EFS storage is as a elastic, why we are using the word elastic? The elastic means there is no limitation of the capacity, right? While we are creating the EFS storage, we don't have to assign the size. You know, when we were creating the EC2 instance, we were giving the size of the disk, right? 1 GB, 20 GB, 40 GB, 30 GB, 8 GB. Remember? Hello?
Yes, yes. But
Yes.
see, EFS is a storage or a service?
It's a storage. It's a service. It's a service. Storage service. It's a storage service.
Okay.
It's a storage service. Okay. So at the time of the EC2 instance creation, the operating system was installing, we were giving the size, we were mentioning the size. If it is a 8 GB, we were giving the 8 GB size, but we were deciding the size in advance. But here we are not deciding the size. It will be elastic, automatic. When the data will be input, go inside, it will be automatically grow up. Size will be automatically grow up elastically. When we are deleting the data, automatically the size will continuously shrink, right? Automatically it will grow up the size, automatically it will shrink the size. So that's why the word elastic is added with the FS, Elastic File System, right? There's unlimited capacity, there is no capacity. It will be grow up automatically as the size, as the data will go inside. It will be shrink automatically. It will be reduced automatically when the data will get deleted. Okay. And EFS does not support the Windows. EFS supports only the Linux platform. Linux platform support only. It is not created, it is not for the Windows, it is supported for the Linux platform only. Okay. So this EFS service, EFS, whatever the servers you will associate with the EFS storage, that will be that belongs with that must be within the same region, right? That must be within the same region. It cannot be like that server number one you have created inside the Mumbai region and server number two you have created inside the Oregon region. That will not work. So whatever the server you are creating, right, it must be belongs to the same region in which the EFS belongs. Okay. So this was the main concept of the EFS. Let's go with the slides.
So without EFS, like until now we are doing, right? So where it is going then?
But
So until now we are creating EC2 instance and giving the storage, all those, right? So where it is going, means where it is in
EBS, Elastic Block Storage.
Elastic block storage.
Elastic
Okay.
Block Storage.
So that elastic, okay.
That is the Elastic Block Storage.
But that we can use across the different regions, right?
That is associated with it. That is inside the EC2 instance. Where the
Oh.
EC2 instance you will create.
Okay.
If you create the
And-
EC2 instance in the Mumbai
Okay,
region,
okay.
then it will be there.
Okay.
So
service
only
specific.
thing the
Okay.
difference is EBS with the assigned EC2 instance and EFS, it can increase, decrease based on like automatic.
This is the one difference. It will be
Yeah.
EFS will be automatically grow up, automatically it will shrink when you will delete the data.
Yeah,
right?
and
In
other
the
thing
EBS,
is
you are
EFS.
installing the operating system. You are installing the application. But in the EFS, you are just storing the data from through here.
We are only storing the data, and it's a virtual file system or
It's a virtual, but behind the disk are there. And these disk number one, disk number two, all the physical disks are managing by the team of the Amazon.
Okay. So EBS is kind of a local storage, right?
Hmm?
So EFS is kind of that we discussed SAN.
Shared. It's a SAN.
Say,
It's a
SAN.
SAN.
Okay, got it. Okay, fine. Right.
Okay, so let's go with the slides. Okay. So guys, is that my screen visible to you? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. So is that my screen visible to you, guys? Hello?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
Okay. Amazon Elastic File System. EFS is a managed NFS network file system that can be mounted on many EC2 instances. If you look at this picture, we have in this picture two EC2 instances, EC2.1, EC2.2, right? So in the two EC2 instances, the link has been file system, EFS file system shared link has been mounted here. So EFS works with the EC2 instances in multiple availability zone, right? In multiple availability zone. Maybe one of the server we have created inside the availability zone A, and second EC2 instance we have created inside the availability zone B, but the region is same. We can create the EC2 instances inside which we are going to be which we are going to attach with the EFS. It can be inside the same region. It can be inside the same availability zone. It can be inside the different availability zones. Highly available and scalable. However, it is expensive. Highly available and scalable. Scalability, it will automatically grow up when we are inputting the data. It will automatically shrink up, right, when we are deleting the data. We are not deciding the size in advance at the time of creating the EC2. Use cases. Use cases is the content management first. Great fit for the content management system, as you can easily share the content between the EC2 instances. Web server, also a great fit for the web server. Have just a single folder structure for your website, right? EFS overview. Use the NFS protocol. Compatible with the Linux-based AMI. Windows does not support at this time. Encryption at rest using the KMS, Key Management Security. So whatever the data which is storing inside the EFS kind of storage, it will be always encrypted. File system scales automatically, no capacity planning required, right? In the case of the EVS, you was planning the size in advance. You want the disk volume 8 GB, you will decide in 8 GB. You want the disk size 50 GB, you was deciding in advance. But here, no planning of the disk size is required. Pay per use. How much you are using, you are paying accordingly. EFS performance. EFS has amazing performance capabilities. Thousands of the concurrent connection you can connect with the single EFS storage. You can connect the 2 servers, you can create the 3 servers, you can create the thousands of the servers you can connect with the single EFS storage. 10 Gbps throughput. EFS can handle up to 10 Gbps throughput. The speed is very, very fast, extremely fast. Petabyte scaling scales your storage to the petabytes. Not only the MBs, not only the GBs, not only the TBs, it is storing petabytes, many petabytes capacity, it is having the storage capacity. Controlling performance. When creating EFS file system, you can set what performance characteristics you want.
Jagannathan, can you please go back to that screen?
Yep.
Throughput and petabyte scaling. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Controlling performance. When creating an EFS file system, you can set what performance characteristics you want. You want the general purpose used for the things like the web servers, content management system, etc. Maximum input output used for the big data, media processing, etc. Where you require to store the huge capacity of the data. That scenarios will be suitable in the case of the EFS kind of storage. Storage tiers. EFS comes with the storage tiers and the lifecycle management, allowing you to move your data from the one tier to the another tier after the n number of days. What do you mean? So remember, think like that. Storage tiers. Let's say this is my EFS storage. This is my EFS storage, central storage. But behind the EFS storage, there must be some disks. Maybe this is the disk number 1 and this is the disk number 2 behind. These are the physical disks. And let's assume that this is my SSD, physical SSD. and this is the magnetic disk. So this disk are the physical disk, right? EFS is in the front end, but behind, after all, AWS is attached, is using some disk. SSD, magnetic disk, right? These two types of the categories of the disk. So SSD, everybody know SSD is 10 times faster than the magnetic disk. Magnetic disk is slower and cheaper. SSD is expensive and faster, right? So we can set the rule. You remember in the S3 storage, we can set the rule. The file, for example, the file name is test.pdf, right? If this file I'm using regularly, then this file is very, very important for me, and it is I'm using every day, every 3 hours, every 1 hour, I require this file. So what will happen? I prefer to save this file on the tier number 1, which is the SSD. Tier 1. Okay. And magnetic disk, this is the tier number 2, second tier. Right? Tier number 2. Okay. Okay. So I want whatever the file I'm using regularly, daily I'm using, it should be automatically keep inside the SSD, tier number 1. Whatever the file, it will cross the time period I'm using hardly once in a 30 days. 30 days once, right? Maybe 40 days once. Means this file I'm not using regularly, right? So why I will pay, why I will keep this file on the tier number 1, right? If the tier 1 keeping the file, storing the file in the tier number 1 in the SSD, the charges will be high. But the same file, if I will keep inside the magnetic tier or the tier number 2, the charges will be less because it is a magnetic disk. So we can have a rule, we can create a rule that if we will not use the file till the 30 days, then automatically this test.pdf file will be automatically moved inside the magnetic tier number 2, and the prices will be reduced for keeping the data. Okay. So that is called as life cycle rule. Okay. Points to remember, right, about the EFS. This is the exam tip. Support the network file system version number 4 protocol. Only pay for storage you use. No pre-provisioning required. Pre-provisioning means, as we were doing in the EBS. In the EBS, we were provisioning the size in advance. The disk volume must be the 8 GB, 10 GB, 50 GB, what? But here we are not provisioning the size. It will be automatically increase. It will be automatically reduce. Can scale up to the petabytes. Can support thousands of the NFS connections. Data is stored across the multiple edges within a region. The region is not going to be changed. The region will be same, but it can be possible. One server we are keeping inside the availability zone A, and the second server we are keeping inside the availability zone B. Read after write consistency. That's it.
Hey, what is that read after write consistency?
Read after write. Read after write. First, the data will be completely written. Suppose if you are saving the data inside, the data is going to be stored inside the EFS until it will be completely saved till the last unit. It will not be available for the read. Correct?
Can you show that slides once? Just wanted to take.
Sure. Any other slide or this one you want?
No, this one only.
I will upload this slide in the LMS portal also.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So guys, tomorrow we will do the lab exercise for the same EFS storage. I will show you the demonstration tomorrow. Okay. Today.
Okay. Right.
Okay, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Jagger.